This was never about privacy. This was about control. And the second the world stopped clapping, the whole illusion started shaking. They screamed for privacy and then sold their lives to Netflix. They preached authenticity and then dodged the simplest questions. And the wildest part? The one subject they absolutely refused to talk about: their own children. Most parents can't stop talking about their kids. But Harry and Meghan? Total silence when it matters most. The glossy photos, the perfectly staged moments, the billion-dollar brand built on victimhood and visibility, it's all starting to crack. And what's underneath might be the biggest royal mess we've seen in decades.
Tell me that this wasn't on purpose. She knew exactly what she was doing here. Now, the question from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at all about the lies that destroyed the final days of the...
And it's very interesting to work that out. There's two things, I think. One is that she was determined to win.
Here's where things quietly turn savage. Their wedding anniversary rolls around. Normally, this is their Super Bowl, a perfectly timed Instagram post, a soft focus family shot, maybe a line about resilience, love, surviving against all odds. That's been the playbook for years. Every milestone carefully packaged, captioned, and monetized. But this time, nothing. No post, no message, no warm wishes from the royal family. Not even their Hollywood friends bothered to show up in the comments. Absolute silence. And for a couple that built their entire post-royal life on attention, that silence wasn't peaceful. It was brutal.
They are scrupulous about this. They have people on the set to say, for God's sake, don't make any hygiene.
This wasn't them choosing privacy. Let's be real. We all know how that usually goes with these two. This was the world choosing not to look. Their anniversary came and went like a random Tuesday. No trending hashtags, no magazine spreads, no entertainment shows rushing to fill airtime. It was as if the public collectively shrugged and moved on. And that's the kind of thing that hits harder than criticism. Hate still means people care. Indifference means you're done.
Curates their visibility like any influencer parent managing content assets and predict.
Think about how far they've fallen. These are two people who left the royal family to control their narrative, to be the architects of their own brand, to own the spotlight on their terms. And for a while, it worked. Netflix threw money at them. Spotify handed over a deal. Journalists hung on their every word. Fast forward to now, and their anniversary doesn't even register. Strip away the PR machine, the carefully worded statements, the strategic leaks, and what's left? Apparently not much. No genuine support from Hollywood. No warmth from the family they claim traumatized them.
About Archie and Lilibet's birth records have sparked panic inside Buckingham Palace. With a
just empty space where celebration should have been. And here's the real kicker. This wasn't just about a forgotten anniversary. This was a preview of what happens when people stop buying what you're selling. When even your most loyal supporters get tired of recycled drama. That silence, it wasn't neutral. It was savage. It was the universe saying, we're done listening. You can almost picture them refreshing their feeds, waiting for something, anything, a headline, a message, a signal they still matter. But nothing came. And for two people whose entire existence revolves around being seen, being heard, being relevant, that might be the cruelest punishment of all. And while their anniversary faded into nothing, something else started brewing. People who'd been watching the royal family for decades, insiders, longtime royal correspondents, started talking, not whispering anymore, saying out loud what millions had quietly wondered for years. Royal births follow a pattern.
Angela Levin opened her mouth, and oh my God, the energy in that studio shifted. The hosts froze. The crew literally...
A system, hospital, doctors, documentation, a brief appearance on the steps, transparency. Kate did it 3 times. Exhausted, hair not perfect, but present. Clear, simple, reassuring. But with Meghan, none of that. No hospital steps moment, no clear timeline. Just staged photos, odd camera angles, and a baby bump that seemed to change shape depending on the day. People noticed. And asking questions isn't crazy when you're part of a monarchy. When your children could be in the line of succession, transparency isn't optional. It's the deal. Every other royal mother understood that. Meghan didn't just bend the rules, she threw the entire playbook out. And Harry went along with it like this was all totally normal. That's when the whispers exploded. Why all the closed doors around something that's usually straightforward? Why break traditions that exist to protect trust? Social media lit up, forums dissected photos, timelines were compared, and nothing added up. For years, mainstream media avoided it. Too controversial, too risky. But eventually, the questions got too loud to ignore. These weren't trolls. These were experienced royal watchers saying the same thing. Something doesn't add up. And the irony? Harry and Meghan built their entire brand on telling their truth. Podcasts, interviews, documentaries, hours of talking. But the one story people genuinely wanted clarity on, total shutdown. No explanations, just more curated images and statements that said absolutely nothing. Then Harry snapped. Instead of calm clarification, he went nuclear. Angry reactions, defensive statements, full meltdown mode. And that reaction told people everything. When someone explodes over a simple question, nobody thinks, oh, he's being protective. They think, what's he hiding? The contradiction was painful to watch. A man who claims to value openness going feral the moment transparency is requested. And where was Meghan? Silent, invisible, letting Harry spiral while she stayed safely out of sight. That's not unity. That's strategy. Harry looked panicked, not protective. Panicked, like someone backed into a corner with no clean exit. Every outburst poured fuel on the fire. A confident father doesn't act like this. The more they refused to answer, the worse it got, especially when it came to Lilibet. Naming a child after the Queen carries weight, yet reports suggested the Queen wasn't even properly consulted. That doesn't feel like tribute. It feels like appropriation. And every dodge, every non-answer made people more convinced something major was being kept under wraps. This wasn't one awkward moment. This was a pattern. Repeated avoidance, rewritten stories, inconsistencies stacking up. For a couple obsessed with controlling their narrative, they sure seemed allergic to basic questions. And here's the dangerous part. This isn't just gossip anymore. Monarchies run on bloodlines. That's the foundation. When doubts creep into that system, it's not scandal, it's a crisis. Pull out that foundation and everything above it wobbles. Meghan was supposed to modernize the monarchy. Instead, millions are questioning its most basic elements. And Harry? He doesn't look like a protector. He looks terrified. Titles don't save you when credibility collapses. And right now, credibility is in freefall. This collapse didn't explode. It's crumbling slowly, painfully in public. Deals drying up. Support evaporating. Indifference replacing outrage. And indifference is fatal. This isn't really about Archie and Lilibet as children. It's about trust. And right now, that trust is hanging by a thread. One that gets thinner every time they dodge another question. And that's where we stop, because what comes next is even darker. The scariest part for them isn't the rumors themselves. It's that people no longer feel embarrassed for asking. That invisible line that once protected them, the one where journalists hesitated, fans defended, and critics whispered, it's gone. Completely erased. And once that line disappears, there's no way to draw it back. Because now the questions aren't just coming from online forums or comment sections. They're coming from seasoned royal watchers, former insiders, and people who once bent over backward to protect them. That's when you know the tide has turned. When sympathy drains out of the room and curiosity takes its place. When people stop worrying about being unkind and start asking what actually happened. Harry thought anger would shut this down. He thought if he exploded loudly enough, everyone would retreat. But anger doesn't silence suspicion, it validates it. Every sharp response, every defensive rant only confirmed what people already felt in their gut, that something here doesn't withstand daylight, that transparency isn't missing because it's unnecessary, it's missing because it's dangerous. And here's what really shattered the illusion. Meghan's absence. While Harry was out there unraveling, reacting emotionally, burning bridges in real time, Meghan stayed silent, calculated, untouchable, watching. And that silence spoke louder than any statement. Because if everything was as clean and simple as they claim, she wouldn't need to disappear. She would have stood beside him, calmly reinforcing the story. Instead, she let him take the hits, let him look unstable, let him absorb the backlash while she preserved her image. That's not partnership. That's damage control. Hollywood sees it. And Hollywood is ruthless when it smells liability. This is why the deals dried up, why the invitations slowed. Why the industry that once tripped over itself to attach their names now keeps a careful distance. Netflix didn't get what it paid for. Spotify didn't either. When executives start openly criticizing you after writing 9-figure checks, that's not bad luck, that's reputation collapse. Their brand was built on credibility, on the idea that they were truth tellers, whistleblowers, survivors. But credibility is fragile. Once people suspect you're selective with truth, open about everything except the parts that matter most, the entire structure caves in. You don't get to curate honesty. You don't get to demand belief while refusing verification. And the monarchy? This is where it gets explosive. Because institutions like that don't survive on vibes or feelings. They survive on continuity, documentation, and trust. When that trust is compromised, even slightly, the implications stretch far beyond one couple. Doubt spreads. And doubt, once planted, never stays contained. That's why this isn't fading. That's why it keeps resurfacing. Because silence doesn't erase unanswered questions, it multiplies them. Every year that passes without clarity doesn't calm things down. It makes the eventual reckoning bigger, louder, harder to manage. Harry could have ended this years ago with calm transparency. A steady explanation, a willingness to meet expectations instead of fighting them. Instead, he chose deflection, rage, accusations. He turned reasonable curiosity into a battlefield. And once you frame questions as attacks, you admit you don't have solid ground to stand on. The tragic irony? The very thing they claim destroyed them, media pressure, is the only thing that could have protected them. Clear reporting, clear timelines, clear facts. Instead, they replaced it with mystery, branding, and staged intimacy. And mystery doesn't age well. It rots, it invites speculation, it turns whispers into movements. What we're watching now isn't backlash, it's abandonment. People aren't tuning in to hate anymore. They're tuning out. That's the difference. That's the death spiral. Because when outrage fades, so does relevance. And relevance was the oxygen of their entire post-royal life. Harry gave up a guaranteed role inside history for a gamble on influence. Meghan gambled tradition for control, and both underestimated one thing: public trust isn't infinite. You don't get to drain it and then demand refills. So where does this leave them? Cornered, options shrinking. Every path forward requires the one thing they've refused to give: clarity. And the longer they avoid it, the more obvious it becomes that clarity isn't inconvenient, it's impossible. Because if transparency were safe, we would have seen it already. Instead, we got silence, anger, carefully chosen photos, carefully avoided questions, and a man unraveling in public while the woman who built the strategy watched from the shadows. This isn't protection. This isn't privacy. This is fear. And fear always leaks.